Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside Out Smile. I'm your host, Dr. Amber Q, and there's so many things I would like to talk about. I'm feeling quite peculiar at the moment, and I'd like to share an experience that I had the other day. So I was with my mother in A&E, and this can be quite a frequent occurrence. And it's really interesting because, of course, when you're in any accident and emergency hospital, let's put a caveat there because, apart from occupied Palestine, of course, where horrific things are happening in hospitals, things that should never happen because they're not even a state, occupiers are flouting international law. But in any case, let's just move on. Okay, so generally in A&E, of course, you will see lots of people who are very unwell. And there's some people that are obviously unwell, right? So you can see wounds or you can see something that's physically obvious. And then for others, you can't physically see anything, but you can tell by their facial expressions that they're in pain. And I've been thinking about this because, of course, there's so much suffering all over the world, Sudan, Congo, and of course, occupied lands in Palestine. And it was making me think, obviously when you're in A&E or in any situation where someone's physically unwell, a sane person or someone with humanity and compassion, of course, wants to help. You want to relieve a fellow being, human being's distress. I won't talk about others who are stopping the movement of aid trucks to relieve starving populations or enforced starving populations. But again, let's move on. And I feel that this is all interrelated. I think I've mentioned in previous episodes that when one looks at the sky or the moon, you realise that, the sky and the moon, it's been there, for millennia. And people that have come and gone, whether they're prophets, peace be upon them, or other civilizations, they've all stared at the same skies. But I was just thinking that when you're in A&E, you see humans of this generation, of this point at time. So, for example, I'm in A&E. I'm currently existing. I'm currently alive. So I'm on this plane of reality. And I'm seeing people that are unwell, people that are sick, people that are in distress. But these are people that have come to A&E. There are lots of other people who are in distress and who are, I guess, manifesting it in a different way. They don't realise they need A&E, whether it's emotional, physical, or, a multitude of those factors. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I was thinking we have, and I'm not talking about sort of mental illness, but I want to speak about people's deeds and their actions. And I guess really, Islamically, this certainly comes down to one's heart and the state of one's heart. There are various Islamic scholars that speak about diseases of the heart, whether that's arrogance or other diseases of the heart in that sense, in the metaphysical sense, I guess. But then we also have, we have people that are in A&E because obviously some people may have congenital issues, they may have had an accident. But of course, a lot of us, we're eating ultra-processed foods, junk food, etc. And this is affecting us. And I've spoken frequently about the things that we consume. But equally, I think if we look at our deeds, and I don't know how many of you have heard of the picture of Dorian Gray. Please look it up if you haven't. But, it's a very famous book and which was then produced as a film, I think in the past and then more recently, about a guy who'd made who'd sold his soul to the devil essentially, and was doing bad deeds, but you couldn't tell on his sort of physical face and he didn't age. Don't want to give it all away, although I've probably given most of it away already. But the point is, as we eat junk food and we don't realise what is happening to our health until we have a stroke or, fatty liver disease, etc. In a similar way, obviously, if we do bad deeds or if we're unkind to people, that can manifest in a certain way. And I've heard people who say that they're atheists or possibly agnostic, who don't believe in an afterlife, but they do believe in karma. And it's really interesting because these people often say, well, I think I'm a good person. I mean, firstly, what standard are you holding yourself to? But they say, oh, I am a good person and I try to do the right thing. Again, which standard are you holding yourself to? But the question is that, if we are unkind and we do deeds that harm someone, obviously that's going to reflect in our soul, right? It may not show on our face though, although sometimes I think it does actually show on our face. But the point is, I guess, if we're unkind, if we're doing bad deeds, then that's going to reflect on our spiritual heart, as we would say in Islam. But equally, if we are just, everyone's saying at the moment, which I wholly agree with, if you're silent on the genocide, then you're complicit, right? So basically, if there is, I guess, ill actions or actions of ill will towards others, or if there's inaction, then essentially that is also going to manifest in our lives in some way. And I think that happens directly and indirectly. Because I think that, as they say, none of us are free until all of us are free, right? So if we exhibit inaction during the current genocide, then what is going to happen to us in the future as a result of letting this injustice prevail? So there's that sort of effect, which I guess could be indirect, but then could become direct as it affects our own lives. But equally, it would still have a direct effect on our soul and on our heart. And I don't know, but I'm just feeling these days as if, I don't know, that line between reality and I don't know how to describe it. I want to say the other world, or, because as Muslims, we believe that we have this world or dunya, which is essentially a testing ground, and eternity or the afterlife is really the real life because it's for eternity. And obviously when one actually dies, you literally enter a different world. And if you've seen the movie Ghost, if you haven't seen it, you should watch it, because it's really interesting, because it shows, what happens if you're a bad person and you pass away, and equally if you're a good person. And obviously it's Hollywood, but and I'm not really condoning watching movies, but essentially the thing is that it's really interesting. We have a similar concept. Essentially, Islamically, you'll have an idea of where you're going when you actually pass away. So it's really interesting, because I think the thing is, I was just looking at people in A&E the other day, and it didn't strike me at the time. It's only in retrospect now, and you see sort of obviously NHS staff working really hard, and they're also lovely and they're tired. And my gosh, I remember my clinical days in the hospital. But it's so interesting because, and obviously I'm a dentist, not a medic, but so I wasn't up at nights and things. And well, not that late. I did work in A&E, but you just kind of see, I don't know, physical ill health caused by factors within our control and out of our control. And similarly, I think this just relates to our deeds and actions, whether those are within and out of our control. So obviously, we may feel that the genocide is out of our control, and there are aspects of it that are, absolutely. But there are things that we can do that will affect it. For example, boycotting and raising awareness. Speaking of which, please check the show notes. So I guess what I'm really trying to say is that humanity has so many nuances to it. Whether we're eating something unhealthy that's going to cause physical disease, whether we're consuming something unhealthy, whether it's a toxic relationship or just consuming toxic media that is going to produce a mental health issue, or whether we're going to stand by and watch evil and just horrors being inflicted on humanity. And actually, let's just look at this in detail. It's not just humans that are suffering. It's humans, it's animals, it is. And when we're talking about humans, we're talking about not just men, but women, children, elderly people. We're talking about people with special needs. We're talking about animals as well. We're talking about the land, a blessed land as well, just not, normal land, but the blessed land to all faiths, all Abrahamic faiths. And then, of course, you have the fact that, yes, this is going to affect the environment globally as well, because we know that everything has an effect on all of us. And so are we going to stand by and watch evil sort of prevail, or are we going to participate in evil as some very misguided people are doing? It's kind of, it's kind of the health of humanity, right? So you've got people in A&E and it's their individual health and their family's health, depending on maybe you're eating junk food and you're feeding not just yourself, but you're feeding your family. Okay, so there's that side of things. And then we've got the health of humanity as a whole, which is being affected by this genocide. And I think that's the thing, right? So as I've discussed, I feel that they're kind of direct effects, indirect effects, and these effects are humanity-wide or they're individual, and those effects may not be evident immediately, but they will persist, right? They will persist within our spiritual heart. So I don't know. So that's how I'm feeling at the moment, really, about things. So please check the show notes and sign and share. And until the next episode, let's all create connection and let's not just change lives, but save lives.